זכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. איי איי, השם אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. איי איי איי, לך תדי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכו, היא מקוירה ברחו, איי לראי בראש מקדם נסוכו, סוף מה זה במחשבות תחילו.
Hello everyone. God willing, this Shabbos, we're not only going to read the Parshat Shavua, we're also going to read the last of the 4 Parshas, fulfilling the words of the Shulchan Aruch, that indeed this year come out exactly as it's described. B'Shabbat Chamishi, on the 5th Shabbos of the 4 Parshas, because obviously there was one Shabbos that we didn't have the 4 Parshas, Shehu Kaftet Adar, which is the 29th of Adar, which is this exact Shabbos. Motzein Bet Sfarim, you take out 2 Sifrei Torah, Barisha, by Echad Koreh Parshat Shavua, with the first you read the Parshat Shavua, Pekudei, and Basheni Hachodesh Hazen, with the second you read Parshat Hachodesh. Parshat Hachodesh is from chapter 12 in Exodus, and my question is a very simple one. Part and parcel of that chapter 12 are not just the laws of Korban Pesach that applied and God willing will apply, but rather the special, unique, one-time halachot that were only fulfilled in Egypt on that Seder night before they left. For example, the halacha that you're supposed to sit motnechem chagurim na'alechem beraglechem, namely with your backpacks on, and that's the way you're supposed to eat the Korban Pesach. Never happened again. You can always eat the Korban Pesach without your backpack on. Number 2, putting the blood on the 2 doorposts, a one-time event that gave the wonderful name Passover to the holiday, because that was the sign that God should pass over those homes during the plague of the firstborn. And yet, that too never happened again. There was never a halacha like that we were supposed to fulfill. So why do we read about it every single year before Pesach? I believe that the answer could be answered by another question. How come every year at the Seder, we actually supposed to finish the bulk of the Seder before the events happened? Namely, the halacha is that you're supposed to try to finish the Afikomen by Chatzot, by midnight, and the Rama adds in the name of the Ran that you're supposed to finish Hallel after the Afikomen by Chatzot. So if you're a good frum Jew, you don't come to shul in the morning and boast, my Seder finished at 4 a.m., but rather you come and you boast that I finished Hallel by Chatzot. After all, before Chatzot, nothing happened. It was only at Chatzot at midnight, Vayehi b'chatzi halayla, that the plague of the firstborn happened. Ultimately, Paro got scared. Ultimately, he called Moshe and said, now is the time to leave. Let everyone leave the way you said. I want you out of here. And eventually, the next day, they left. So why is it every year we internalize this night by actually celebrating the entire night before the events happened? If you would have asked me, you have to wait till midnight. And then, that's when we used to start the Seder. It would kill us. We'd be tired. But it seems like that's the way you're reenacting the events. That would be the best way of Chayav Adam Lirot et Atzmo Ki'ilu Hu Yatsa Mitzrayim, that every person should see himself or herself as if he left Egypt. Wait till midnight. At midnight, do a beautiful skit of the plague of the firstborn and take it from there. I believe that one question answers the other. On that famous night in Egypt, they didn't yet get out, but they celebrated the small little achievements that they already achieved. Explain Rav Soloveitchik that even before you left Egypt, even before the great move from servitude to freedom, there were small achievements that night that could not be belittled and had to be celebrated. And what were they? Number 1, self-control. Ve'etzem lo tishberu bo. You can't just go on to that Korban Pesach and eat every part of it and lick the bones. You cannot break a bone. You have to have self-control when you eat. Number 2, they did a mitzvah. Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to do a mitzvah from God, and they actually did it. You know how hard it is to get a Jew to do a mitzvah? After all, outreach is not an easy thing, and they did a mitzvah. They did exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu told them to do. Number 3, they had courage. After all, they took not only an animal, but the animal which was one of the idols of Egypt, and that was the animal they took and they sacrificed. As a matter of fact, according to our tradition, that's why the Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbat Hagadol, because on that year, Pesach came out on Thursday, 4 days before was Shabbos, and indeed, they took the animal on that Shabbos as was commanded, and ultimately, they went against all logic, using courage to take the idol of Egypt and to use it as a sacrifice. I believe we learn from Parshat Hachodesh every year one lesson. We have to remember our ancestors that celebrated a Seder in Egypt before they got out, because we have to celebrate the small achievements in our life. We had a very hard week. Unfortunately, it seems like the war restarted in Gaza. Unfortunately, not many hostages look like they're getting out soon. It has not been an easy time in Israel. And yet, there's been achievements this week. Not big, not huge, but achievements, yes. Reading Parshat Hachodesh teaches us, don't wait for the 50th anniversary. Celebrate an anniversary every year. Don't wait for the report card. Give your son or your daughter a pat on the back for the one test that they got a good mark on. Don't wait for the big achievements to give thanks to God. There'll be many little achievements on the way. Every year, when we read about that Seder in Egypt, and remember, they celebrated a Seder before the events happened, we have to remember to celebrate, just like them, the small little events in our lives, so that Be'ezrat Hashem, we will recognize that big Geula when it comes. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom and a Chodesh Tov.